Good afternoon. I don't think I can adjust the volume on the equipment up here. I mean, this equipment. I can, but not that equipment. So if I start talking quietly, you should move up front and sit on the stage. This is that kind of session. That's how informal we are. I was hoping people really would sit on the stage. We could just like pal around up here. That's fine. We are still going to be so informal that I even brought screen cleaner and one of those little lint-free wipes. So anybody need this? Because your iPads are all filthy and full of... Okay, good. If you don't mind passing this around whenever you're done. It's a whole bottle. I don't want you to be all greasy fingerprinty for this session. Because I saw some of you at that bacon table. And that's nasty. So this session is called iPad Backpack, and hopefully, if you can't already tell, it should just be a fun afternoon session. Let's just cut up and have fun and talk. Very informal. The wiki is kind of rotating on this Keynote slide up here. There is a session going on right now, and several people have asked about this. There's a session from Virginia Department of Ed going on about the e-backpack initiative. So here's the difference between those sessions, and I'm not remotely offended if you leave to go to the other one, or leave for whatever reason. Is the e-backpack one is more from the Virginia Department of Ed, their whole initiative about e-backpacks, moving to digital textbooks, stuff like that. Policies and things like that coming out of DOE about that topic. So that's what that one was about. This is not that. This is informal. You want to throw your iPad in the car and make sure you've got everything ready to go when you get somewhere. That's this one. And this one will be full of a lot more cutting up and inappropriate comments than the Department of Ed one will be. I'll show you that. So the slide that you see on the screen right now, if I quit flipping it, is the URL for this session, iPadBackpack.wikispaces.com. And it's an open wiki, so if you want to join this wiki and make edits, that would be awesome. There's a lot of stuff on the wiki, and I'll put that wiki up in just a second. A couple things that are on that wiki space for those of you who do iPad workshops. There's a full day agenda set up on that wiki, so if that's something you do. I have done a handful of iPad workshops for principals, so it's a little bit more geared toward like an administrator type day. Some other things on that wiki are just good resources that people have shared with me about iPads. I don't know if that's me making that high-pitched noise. Links to other people who are iPad users and who have shared resources, things like that. So feel free to go there. I also always say about all wikis, I would love for you to join it and edit it, or go in there and copy all the text and paste it into your own wiki and delete my name off of it. Use it as your own. It's open stuff. It's just my brain kind of dumped out in slight order on a wiki page. So that's the wiki space up there. The other slide that's on there, or just kind of what we're going to go through in this afternoon session, are how can you get your iPad organized kind of for your own little digital backpack. I really do hear a high-pitched noise. Is it really just me? Or is it? Oh, good. Other people, thank you for agreeing. I'm sure you're not telling the truth. There is, some of you just came in, there's screen cleaner being passed around because that's what kind of session we are. Not that I have OCD or anything. This session will, again, just be informal and play. A lot of the cool people, if you just walked in, a lot of the cool people are going to come sit up on stage in a few minutes. So if you want to be one of those, come on up here. So I'm going to flip to the wiki now. I'll put that back up there again. A couple of you just walked in. The agenda for this site is iPadBackpack.wikispaces.com. And we'll pretty much stick there and then play around with some apps. What we will do also throughout the session is I'll talk about some of the apps I use. I would love it if you all would kind of yell out from the back if I'm talking about Evernote or something and you have a much better productivity app. Please share those things because You know, I change apps pretty often. I get stuck on one for a while, and then somebody will say, oh, you should totally try out, you know, whatever app. And I think that's kind of the best way that we all find good apps is through sharing in sessions like this. iPadbackpack.wikispaces.com. It's like genie music back there. What you should see on whatever device you're on is a wiki space like this, or a wiki page rather. Give mine just a minute to reload. If you're downloading apps or streaming movies, it would be awesome if you quit doing that. Okay, so I think it's loaded now, or loading at least mostly. iPadbackpack.wikispaces.com. What I'd like to ask before we start is, one is just old school surveying, meaning how many of you are in the classroom teacher? How about tech coordinators at the district level, ITRTs, media specialists, principals, school board members, university people? Yay, there's one. Gifted teachers or gifted people? I like all the confident people raise their hand for that. And then other. And three of the people who raise their hand for other, I know what you are, so we don't need to explain what your other is, because not appropriate for a recorded session. We will do a poll real quick also to see about your iPad expertise. So if you're on this wiki, you'll see at the very top, there is a little link that says poll everywhere. If you tap that link, you should get to a page like this. And I realized I'm not logged in, so. I'm on iPad Backpack toward the top left. VSTE attendees, let's test the Wi-Fi with poll everywhere. If you click that, this should come up. Rank your iPad level of expertise. Who is getting to that poll everywhere page? Oh, good, 2 people. Yeah. That's okay. It wasn't that important. Just a technology session. So how about this? While we're waiting for your Wi-Fi, how many of you are iPad beginners? Do that, show of hands. A handful of people, 5 or 6. How about intermediate, advanced, super advanced, and you're in the wrong session? Awesome. Thank you for those smart alecks who raised their hand for that. So this session is probably really not for beginners. If you just open up your iPad on the way to the conference, it's probably tricky to do this session. But there are resources on this wiki that really are for you. So how do I set up my email? How do I set up my calendar? Stuff like that. How do I multitask? And according to Microsoft, you can't. So there's your answer. Let's switch to this. So again, what I really would like is to share some of these resources with you, talk about what I do on my iPad, and then I really hope that you'll kind of yell back from the audience either questions or suggestions, and play around with rearrange your iPad while we're talking, things like that. So I'm going to go through an overview pretty quickly, then I'll go back to each little step, just so you know what I'm doing here. So on that wiki, I'm just sort of talking about the way that some people organize their iPad. What I've read on a lot of kind of iPad productivity blogs is a lot of people will organize their iPad for their own personality, but with some specific reasons. So some people will put, for example, on their first main iPad screen, productivity stuff that's not distracting. So that when they're on that screen, they can check their email, look at their calendar, read their posts or whatever it is, and things like games and music and Facebook are on a whole different screen. I have no idea how effective that is. It wouldn't stop me if I was determined to go look at my Facebook. It would add maybe a second, I guess, of delay. Other people say things like they actually really look at the flow of their apps, and I'll switch to my screen. So they're ordered in a specific flow across their screen, organized in a way. Mine are organized in a way, sort of for me, that makes sense because the things that I do most often, and hopefully you can read this from the back, are sort of the bottom left and the side left, going vertical from the top. Temporary stuff, I switch that in and out all the time, and we'll play with that in a second. Social, utilities, and productivity are kind of the main things that I use often, and then the bottom ones are the ones that I use all the time. Video, calendar, message, mail, Safari, and music, if you can't see those. The stuff that I have on I only have two screens and then a couple random things on the end, probably by accident. I drug those over there. White noise, because y'all were being so loud in the Pine Room last night that I had to get an app to block it out. I'm not naming names, but third row. So this second screen really is a random smattering of stuff. It's not organized by any theme or anything like that. It's kind of stuff that I stuck on there and I wasn't sure what to do with it, so it's there. But my first screen really is kind of organized by the way I use it. The challenge is I rearrange so much stuff for workshops that I get it super all set up, when I get home and I go, now this is my perfect flow. And then 2 days later I go teach an iPad workshop. I'm showing somebody how to create folders, and they're all over the place. So that's sort of what my screen looks like. Again, there's some interesting articles on iPad arrangement. I do have by the way, I want to talk about the temporary folder thing. A lot of times I download an app or I create one of those, Safari shortcuts just temporarily. Sometimes I'll download an app to play with it and see, and I don't know if I want to use it or not. Or maybe I'm going to a school district and they do certain things with apps, so I stick it in a temporary folder just to drag it. If you haven't played with that little VSTE schedule app, you should do it. Although you should have done it before now. The day's already over. It is too late? Oh, well, too bad for you then. It would have been cool. So back on this one. So the first step I'm saying is downloading and organize apps into folders. Again, we're going to go back to that in a minute and play with some app stuff. If you're scrolling down, depending on your workshop participation style, meaning you're totally not listening and you're just playing on your iPad, or you're half listening, or you're really following along, all those are totally acceptable. We're all adults. There was no sarcasm in that, by the way. I really was being totally serious. Sorry, there usually is. That was not one, though. The other thing that's really important is getting your own synchronization plan in place. Because I will say a lot of the people that I talk to with mobile devices, and this is not specific to iPad, but you really do realize you've got stuff strung out all over the place. Bookmarks, documents, things like that. And you get somewhere and go, ooh, I don't want to bring my whole laptop. It'll be so awesome to not bring that 5-pound laptop. And you get there and your stuff isn't all set up to sync. So you thought you did something on the desktop that was going to show up on here or on the laptop, and it didn't. So we'll play with synchronization in a minute. And I think that's one of the most important pieces, is making sure that if you're going to go around with your iPad, that all your stuff's synced up. So if you are productive on the iPad and make changes, you're for sure will know that it's changed when you get back to work or home. The third one that I have listed up there is putting frequently needed content. This is not totally unlike syncing, but meaning stuff that I even might remotely want to use. So I'm almost all paperless now. I'm very close to being paperless. And if I can think of any kind of handout or anything like that that I even might need, I either save it as a PDF or I stick it in Dropbox and stick it on here. Documents are so small they barely take up any storage. You've got plenty of room on your iPad with Dropbox and all that. So you may as well stick every single thing you can possibly think of that you might need on here. So I put, as gross as it sounds, I put SOL manuals, stuff like that. So whenever I'm out in schools, I can look at the blueprints or release test items or wherever it might be. And I don't know what you might put on there. If you're not familiar, both in Dropbox and Google Drive, you can either star items to make them available offline, or you can, in Google Drive, you can select individual items to make them available offline. So you don't even have to have internet access. If you're somewhere where they have sketchy Wi-Fi, might be something to do. By the way, that is not VSTE's fault. That is Hotel Roanoke's fault for the sketchy Wi-Fi, just for the record. Since we're being recorded, I wanted to put that out there. What do I care? I'm leaving tomorrow. What are you going to do? And then number 4, plan for the extras that you might need. So I don't want to even mess with this one too much, but I have the old school dongle, which is just the white VGA cable thing that you can buy from Apple or wherever. That's one of the things I always have in me. I have this iPad backpack thing right here. It's not a purse, it's a satchel. Indiana Jones wears one. So I plan for that. I throw stuff in there too, like the screen cleaner, because you never, if you're in a hotel and you're eating bacon, you never know, you get a big greasy screen, you might need that thing. Also, we were talking earlier about AirPlay and stuff like that, and we'll go back to that in a minute. It's really slick. If you're on really good Wi-Fi, that's the best route to go. AirPlay, which is the wireless reflecting from iPad to projector, or iTV if you're a big-time Apple person. At the ISTE conference, they use ITVs in all the presentation rooms, and they have really good Wi-Fi at those convention centers, so it's a really slick way to do it. You can walk around much easier. If you're in a classroom, that's a great thing to use. You can use your iPad as kind of a slate, basically, if you can get that on the Wi-Fi. So let's go back up to the top. Again, what I'm hoping you'll do is interject throughout this. Just yell out, even if I don't stop talking, just interrupt, it's fine. So I want to start at the top part about downloading and organizing apps. I mentioned a little bit about the temporary folder thing. The next piece that I'll talk about are just the apps that I use and why I use them and what I use them for. So the social network apps that I have listed here, people ask a lot, what apps do you use? By no means would I say these are the recommended apps. These are just the ones I use. So, again, yell out, I use Twitter for the Twitter app, not that exciting. Some people like TweetDeck better or TweetBot. So we'll do that throughout this whole session. So let me go back to that little chunk. So in the social networking piece, these are the ones that I use. I have them thrown in here, no particular order. I use Edmodo mostly at conferences. I don't use it a lot outside conferences, but a lot of school districts use it. So if I'm in a school district, we certainly play with that one. I'm going to slip down to productivity just because I want to ask you all about a couple of these specifically. So we're going to do some app smack talk. These are the main productivity apps that I use all the time. Not really Haiku Deck, because I play with it and I'm too spastic with it to really be good. But I'm going to go back to these because I want to hopefully start a big productivity debate. You can't get any nerdier than that, can you? Here's a couple that I use a little less often. I just started playing with this app called, if I can see it on here, Scroll Show. Don't download it now for real, but it is awesome. So I want to show you this one just to be super distracted. Scroll Show is a presentation app. Has anybody ever played with this one or downloaded it? Here's how Scroll Show works. If you want a different presentation or productivity app, you have to be somewhat creative, which I'm not. But you build slides the same way you do in PowerPoint, but instead of just tapping through one screen, you're just scrolling through a whole story, really. So it'd be a really cool thing for kids to do, although I don't think it's free. It's the only problem. So I'm just going to stop for that, because I'll get super distracted. So I want to go back to the main screen of productivity, because this is where I would like to ask you for your feedback on some of these. So for me, one of the things that lets me be mobile with my iPad, really meaning it's a backpack, is Evernote. A lot of people have heard of Evernote, certainly. I'd like to ask you, how many of you in the room are Evernote, big-time users? So about 7 or 8 of us. How many of you tried Evernote and didn't like it? How about tried Evernote and just didn't really have a need for it? How about that version? And then never tried it? How many of you didn't raise your hand for any of those? Awesome. Those are the only options, so I don't know what you're waiting for. Those are the 4 best I could come up with. So here's what I use Evernote for, and I'll log into mine. So Evernote is, the reason I use Evernote for my sort of digital backpack is, again, I'm trying to be paperless. That's what drove me to Evernote, is I don't want to take handouts from anybody. At a conference, I take pictures of the handouts in Evernote. I don't want to distribute handouts, and I don't want to take notes on paper. I was joking with the group yesterday. I use Evernote for all note taking. So at the University of Virginia, you attend a lot of meetings that are pretty long and require a lot of notes, or so the presenters think. So I take a lot of notes in Evernote because, again, I do want them with me no matter where I go. I don't want to have to take paper notes. We use a lot of chart paper at UVA for some weird reason. And chart paper to me is a nightmare as far as being effective with it. Unless you're just drawing on it on the wall, or do what I do and write little inappropriate comments when you walk out of the meeting, stuff like that, I think it's basically useless. So if you have a tool like Evernote on any device, doesn't matter what it is, but iPad, You can take pictures inside the Evernote app, and it has OCR built in, really nice, well-working OCR. So when you take pictures of those chart papers along the wall, you capture the text out of those, not just a picture. It actually scans and reads the text in those pictures. I'm really impressed with how y'all are passing that screen cleaner around. So I'm going to do a quick demo of Evernote, and here's why I think you should play with this if you really want a mobile backpack. Because it does help you not have to carry around paper notes, and it does help you with all those other tools that I just said. It allows you to access these notes. It allows them to be synced. So I can create a grocery store shopping list at home on the desktop, edit it on the iPad or on the iPhone, and then when I actually get to the grocery store, the list is all complete and it's edited and things like that. If I write stuff like that on a piece of paper, there's no way I'll ever find it. And if I don't make lists, then I leave the grocery store with $200 worth of Oreos and stuff like that. So I'm going to show you some of the notes that I've taken because, again, I think this is important to be if you're going to kind of be a mobile user. So your notes in Evernote are just listed like this. Some of these are picture notes. Some of these are just typed notes. If you're a single person who looks thin, then every woman that knows you always sends you recipes. And when both people on either side of you are older ladies who have lots of kids, they make food for you, which is so awesome. I'm sharing this one with you. If you want this recipe, it is the most awesome strawberry dessert ever. It's about 8,000 calories per bowl. So that tells you, it's got whale lard, stuff like that in it. So here's what I do with Evernote. It's all these random notes. By the way, this is not my real personal account. My real personal one, I take a lot of notes in that aren't necessarily confidential, but it would have people's names and an academic record, stuff like that, that are not necessarily, super secret privacy, but there's stuff up here that, wouldn't necessarily need to be projected. So these are some sample notes. These are real notes that I copied from my other one. If somebody handwrites a note, even, I don't know if you can read this from the back, it was just written on a regular piece of paper. I just take a picture of it in Evernote, and now it becomes searchable. Scribbly handwriting. You can barely even read it on paper. These are chart paper notes. And again, these are real notes, so it's not like I made these up or something. I take pictures of things out of a magazine, so if I'm sitting on a plane or something, or if I'm in a doctor's office, you don't want to tear out the magazine, so you take a picture of it in Evernote or whatever app. I like Evernote best for that because, again, it has the OCR. So now this becomes searchable too. If you get up from your plane seat and you're sitting next to me, I'm probably going to take a picture of your book or your magazine or whatever it is personal that you leave on your seat just for fun. What else are you going to do to entertain yourself on a plane? Any single time I get conference handouts, like at this conference, it was awesome that they didn't print the printed booklet. I thought that was really cool. Most people didn't bring paper handouts, which was also really cool. Some people did, which again, it's everybody's personal style. But I took pictures of those in Evernote, and now this is searchable. So after you take all these, if you look at the top right, I can type in a word. Maybe I can't remember what the note was about, but we did a chart paper exercise last week at UVA on contract work or something. So I can just type in contracts. And if this were my real account, it would say searching 800 notes or however many I have. If I tap search, and if Wi-Fi cooperates, it'll search all my notes and see if it can find the word contracts. So we'll let it do that. While it's doing that, I would want to ask you, for those of you who are trying to be mobile with your iPad, what is your productivity app as far as like the paperless note-taking thing? Notability. Notability, and is that kind of like Evernote or no?
Yeah.
And why do you use that? Have you tried Evernote and you...
I had trouble with Evernote because I was using the free version, and organizing my notes was a nightmare. With Notability, there are like books and then pages in books. So I've got a book called VSTE 2013. I add a note to that book very easily. Each one's on a separate page. I can record, I can take pictures, I can edit the pictures. I can handwrite or type.
You can do that in Evernote too.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said it. I was trying to argue with you, but...
I just like it. I like it better.
I don't know that one's any better than the other, but it's like all of us have different preferences. I think Notability probably is just as good as Evernote, it's just a different version. So... if that had worked, it would have really been awesome to see. It searches through your notes, and it will highlight where it found the word in those notes. So I really am not making that up. It really does work usually. So that's one of those tools. Who else uses one of those that's not maybe Evernote or Notability that you'd like to share or yell out?
I have a question.
Okay, good.
If this had come out, does it sort of look like the search in OneNote, where OneNote pulls up the different items? Or does that just
I don't use OneNote too often, but
you know what I mean?
we'll try it again. Somebody yell it if you're a OneNote user. Does it look like what she asked? Where it highlights the word? I mean, in here it does. It highlights it in yellow. And
Alongside the name of the document where it is.
yeah, it basically does that. We'll try it again and see if that's what you're talking about. So how about Evernote questions? I think this is the one you need to know about to sort of be a mobile iPad user. You heard Notability as an alternate. So let's talk about a few others for you to be mobile. That'll probably not keep searching, so we'll just ignore it. Some of the other things I think you need to know about in the productivity section. Keynote is a good presentation app. There are tons of others. Slide Rocket is one. Yell out some more. What are some other slideshow type presentation apps? Prezi, yeah, that's a really good one. What was it? Oh, Haiku Deck, yep. So everybody knows about Dropbox. What I like about Dropbox, and this is a relatively recent feature, not in the last few days, but in the last maybe few months or so, is you can store items for offline use in Dropbox or make items available for offline use. What's also nice now about Dropbox is that it integrates across all your devices, but you can also do a couple neat things in Dropbox now. Small annotations, things like that. Box is another one, box.net or box.com, that does the same thing, although Box actually has a few more editing capabilities built in. So again, right now I'm kind of talking about being paperless when you're mobile. Pages, I'm not even that big a fan of Pages. It's Apple's free version, I think it's free now anyway, of Microsoft Word Lite, I guess. But for me, 90% of the stuff that I type in Evernote because I don't really do a lot of page layout on the iPad. I'm mostly just taking notes and then I dump it in something fancy later. Who has a question about the productivity apps or some comments back about that? I think that was important to make sure you're set up productivity-wise. Yes?
How do you find out more about Evernote? I was trying to do a little bit of research, to get proficient with it, and sometimes it just takes, playing with it. But I ran across something in the summertime on the web about educational applications for Evernote, and it seemed like there was a lot more capability to it that I don't seem to be able to access.
I've never seen it used in a K-12 classroom, so I don't know about that. But what it can do for me, it's my entire note-taking, life is done in Evernote. So audio note-taking, handwriting, which I barely do, taking pictures. Yeah, I have a handout on Evernote, so if you email me after this, or even now, I'll email you the handout about it. Or I'll put it on this wiki, actually, if you want. Yeah. Sort of like a 2-pager intro to Evernote.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to...
Chris, Stephen Anderson
Yep.
did I found out about him on Twitter. He did a blog post a year or so ago and showed you you have to do it from the computer, but you can organize it so it looks like OneNote. You have your notebook and then your files in each one, and that's what convinced me that how to organize it and so on.
And I do have mine organized like that. I didn't show that view.
And it doesn't show up the same on
Yep.
the app that it does on the computer.
Yeah, the desktop, if you're not familiar with it, actually has like little physical notebooks to organize your notes. So if you're not familiar with Pocket, that's another one that I just want to tell you about. So Pocket is one that lets you save URLs and websites for offline viewing. And it's the same thing, meaning it works across different devices. Save it on your desktop. There's a browser extension, so if you're at a cool website that you think you might want to read later, you just click the little Pocket thing in your browser toolbar, and it downloads it and saves it for offline viewing in this Pocket app. So each of those little things that I have saved there are just different articles that I've saved that I might want to access offline. I'm not really vegan, I just was curious about it. I eat bacon like there's no tomorrow. I was just curious about that article, I guess you're wondering. So that's what Pocket is. Again, I find myself with sketchy Wi-Fi often, unfortunately, and I try to not use a ton of 3G data for just goofy stuff. So if I can save stuff in Pocket, I do it. Any feedback on saving stuff offline? Syncing that across your devices? I know you know some. Say it louder. Symbaloo. So can you tell me about that one? What is that?
It's like, it's a bookmarking tool that looks like apps and
Oh yeah, I do know that. Yeah. So Symbaloo, Symbaloo, which is a bookmark syncing tool across your devices, right? And unlike scrolling bookmarks, it's little app-looking things. I did, right when you were saying that, I remember that.
But does that let you do offline viewing the Bible?
I don't think it does. I think it's just a launch pad to the bookmarks. Yeah. A couple other comments about some of these productivity ones that you should pay attention to on your iPad backpack. I really like SkyDrive itself, not the iPad app though. I like Microsoft's SkyDrive, what do we call that, suite or package. It's phenomenal. It's like Microsoft Word Lite, basically, the free version. But the SkyDrive app for iPad is just not that great because all it really lets you do is just view your stuff. It's kind of a pain. So that's why I use Google Drive a lot and Evernote a lot. Cloud On is a free one that I use. The rest of these don't matter. I mean, for this session, they don't matter. I don't really use Dragon Dictation that much. I do use Digo a lot. So Digo is another bookmarking tool, whatever, similar one to Symbaloo. In that it lets you sync your bookmarks. You can annotate your bookmarks, highlight specific sections of a bookmarked page, have private or public bookmarks. So sorry, go ahead. Somebody was going to say. I know. I was so mad at Delicious because I had all that stuff in there for years, and they kind of sort of went away for a while, and I was like, forget it. I'll just move everything to Digo. And then they came back, and I was like, oh, too late. I should try.
Different, show me, has anybody done create edu creations? Yeah, do you all agree that's better? Or do you think it's, because I haven't used both of them a lot.
Show Me, is it a free app?
Show me is a free app, edu creations is the same type of thing. Records what you're doing on your own.
So I'm just scrolling through the rest of these apps. I don't want to sit here and do an app tour for you. I hope you'll yell out some. These are my different categories. Anybody see anything in here that you'd counter with a better one if you're scrolling on your own or looking at mine? What's your must-have productivity app? Anybody want to yell that one out? If you don't yell it out, you have to come up and sit on the stage and talk about it and demo it. Dropbox is your must-have. Yeah, that one's my must-have too. And Google Drive. What else while we're on productivity? Must-have apps. One Password. So tell us about that one. Who else uses that? Do a show of hands. 1Password. Yeah, I probably do need to use that because I do have a million different passwords for everything, and I just try them all out until I have to reset it. That's what
Until you're locked out.
yeah, until I'm locked out, and then I go, I don't want to go here anyway. I didn't want to bank today anyway. So 1Password, yeah, I need to play with that more. I've heard of it, but I've never actually done it. Any other must-have productivity apps? Cloud On. Why do you say that's must-have?
If you're doing an observation, you have a phone fill app or a phone fill document, you can access that on Google Drive.
So I'll launch Cloud. Anybody not heard of Cloud On? It's probably the closest looking thing to Microsoft Office for iPad. Oh, too bad. Sign in. Let's try this and see what my password is. I wish there was some way that I could sign into everything all at once. Any other productivity apps before we move on?
How about online desktop?
Online desktop. Online? On live desktop. And what is that?
It turns your iPad into a PC. It looks exactly like
Creepy.
It has free versions of Microsoft Office 2010 and Windows Media Player, and you can create what Excel spreadsheet on there, and it automatically syncs it to your account online. So when you get back to your office, you guys can see that you can download your Excel spreadsheet. Oh, what's that? Online desktop.
On live desktop. Let's move on a little bit. That's enough productivity. Nobody's that productive. I'm going to scroll through the photos and art stuff. That's the fun piece. If you haven't played with Pick Stitch, that's a cool one. Pick Stitch. Not doing a demo because then I'll just want to play with it. General utilities, find the iPhone. If you leave that around your house or in your office, obviously you don't have to have an app for it, but it's a good one. Anybody not ever heard of Flipboard? Few hands. Flipboard is, I'll demo that one, or if there's internet, I'll demo it. Let's see where I put it. Flipboard is little squares of magazine articles that come from RSS feeds or actual magazines or Twitter hashtag feeds even. You can really customize it a lot. If you're somebody who's not into Twitter, meaning like you want a whole separate app to do it, you can have Twitter feeds feed into your Flipboard app. Each of these little squares potentially could fill with information from the internet based on an RSS feed or a hashtag. Look how cool that is. And so each one of those little squares is customizable. So you can add a square that's just like, I just want one little square that is a Twitter hashtag about special ed. And you'll get a really neat little sub-feed of Twitter, but in magazine format on this. That's just about that little subtopic. So it's kind of a neat thing too if you're somebody who's new to Twitter or you're showing somebody about Twitter and you want to show them the power of just listening in on conversations even. Flipboard's a great way to do it. Or again, blogs can feed in here. You can see at the top right, I've got a hashtag for EdTech. So that whole little section comes out almost like a magazine displayed of all the Twitter posts with the hashtag EdTech. There's another one that's just like Flipboard, and for the life of me, I can't remember it. Zite, Z-I-T-E, yep. But there's one more too that. Who uses Flipboard that wants to add something to that? Yeah, that's why I love it. It's just a great aggregator, but in magazine format. So it's neat to flip through and read. Look at a demo later when you're hardwired. It's awesome. Did anybody even catch my sarcasm? Plug your... I didn't even hear it, but I'm sure it was awesome. Yeah, exactly. Stick it on your USB drive and put it in there. So a couple more, just moving on. For music, I like Shazam. I'm a really big music nerd, and I constantly am launching Shazam. If you're not familiar with it, you probably heard it's been on the Apple commercials, I think. It just, if you, yeah. If I'd caught it quick enough, I could have Shazammed that and it would have told me the artist. Soundhound, and Soundhound sort of is better at alternative music sometimes, like the obscure stuff. I mean, they're both good. I do Shazam a lot. If I'm somewhere and there's music playing, I just launch it and, it recognizes the sound. You can buy the song directly from Shazam. Who else has a cool music app you want to talk about if you're a music person? Because that's another thing. When I'm on the go with my iPad, I'm, again, a big music person. So I have all the built-in, of course, music app, chock full of songs. But I have some other things. Songza, it's kind of a neat one. Any other music people want to throw in there? What was it? Yeah, I like Songify a lot. Yeah, that's another good one. Yeah. Somebody else was going to say one. The Wi-Fi's working? Is that what you said? Yes. I'll take your word for it. On videos, if you haven't played with Crackle yet, it's free obscure TV shows in kind of no particular order. Amazon Instant Video, if you're an Amazon Prime person where you can pay like $40 a year for free shipping or something, you also get free streaming videos as part of your Prime membership if you're a video person. I don't ever watch it that much, but occasionally I do. So coursework, UVA, Larry Sabato, if you've ever heard of him, he just built a big course in iTunes, and a team of us were on that iTunes course building project. You can build courses now in iTunes U. You don't have to be affiliated with the university. You can build your own one individual course in iTunes U if you want. It's kind of a neat thing. Any other coursework apps that are your favorites besides iTunes U that let you build actual full-on coursework stuff? Virginia DOE people are in here. Jean, Sherry, Gail, would you like to add anything to that? Nope, awesome, thank you for that. Very easy. The iTunes U course builder is phenomenally easy.
Of course, it's completely web-based, so you won't be able to see where you can
No.
It is really easy.
That part's kind of a pain that you have to have the web. It's really weird. So the iTunes U course builder is exactly like what you think. When you log in as your course builder account, you kind of open up the shell for a course, and you've just got all these little modules for videos, links, books, articles, comment section. It's what you would expect iTunes or Apple would make of like a little, I don't know how you would describe it, like a little Blackboard course builder type thing.
Everything is very modular, I think. I mean, it's very easy to just click, add content here, add a link here, upload a file here. It's just really intuitive. Yeah.
It really is. It's a really cool tool to do even just for your own. If you're not teaching a full-on course, it's a neat one to build just for coursework for your classes. It is free. Yep. I don't know what the actual name of it is. Is that what it is? iTunes Course Builder? Yeah. So around me, I'm going to do travel for a second, because if you're a mobile backpack user, if you use your iPad for backpack, meaning on the road travel stuff, you would want some cool travel apps. So again, I hope you'll yell out some of these. Around Me is one of my favorite ones. If you haven't ever seen that, it's just when you're somewhere and you don't want to necessarily search on Google Maps, you can just launch Around Me and tap the category for stuff you want that's around you. And it uses your 5-mile radius maybe, I can't remember how far. And there's a bunch of pre-programmed categories, restaurants, medical places. I've heard there's bars in there. I wouldn't know about that, but it's different from Asking Siri. So we can launch it and tap one. We'll see if we have internet or not. This will be a great group to ask this question of. So if you're an iPhone user also, have you used the Google Now or the little Google app, the updated Google app? Anybody done that? Their Google search app now on iOS is really slick because it also has voice search. And to me, it's even faster than Siri. It doesn't do all the stuff that I do with Siri. So I use Siri a lot for just personal productivity stuff. So I tell it stuff all the time, like remind me in 2 hours to wake up or whatever. Or remind me in an hour to turn on the oven. Like I tell Siri stuff like that all the time, walking around my house. The Google Now thing, which is on iOS now, it's just called Google, has really great search too. So if you launch that and do a voice like, what's the phone number for Corned Beef and Company? If you do it in the Google app, it pops up and tells you split second. I mean, faster even than Siri. But that's how I use it for stuff like that. Searching, tell me the phone number, or what time does Whole Foods close, or whatever. It's immediately fast. It doesn't work quite the same on iPad, but on iPhone it's phenomenal. So here's Around Me. is a travel app that I use constantly. And again, I barely bring my laptop anywhere when I'm just going on trips because I can do almost everything from the iPad now, pretty much everything. So you can click on just restaurants or whatever, and it just gives you a little map of all the restaurants that are around here. So I guess the difference is this is meant to locate, things around you as opposed to Siri's just whatever, kind of a wide open search. There's a ton of them, really, restaurants around here. It is dependent on an internet connection, and I guess I turned off my 3G or something. I have all the other goofy stuff in here. If you've never seen Say Hi, that's a fun one. If you ever go somewhere and they speak a foreign language. Whoops, I just knocked it out. And I don't mean Georgia. I have no room to talk. I'm originally from Louisiana. I just can't even do the cool fake accent, unfortunately. My mom's from Connecticut, so if you mix Louisiana and Connecticut, you get this. It's really scary. So let's try this again. I accidentally unplugged it because I moved it. Say Hi is a translation app. Also needs internet, but unlike the Google Translate, and I think Google Translate will actually do audio now too if you're in the Chrome browser. But Say Hi is pretty cool because you can just say, can you tell me where a local sushi restaurant is? And you pick the language, and not only does it type it back, but it says it back. So if you really want to be an obnoxious tourist, you can just hold it up and play it at the person who speaks the other language. That'll win them over. They love Americans that do that. Because English is the only language. I use TripIt a lot. So what's cool, if you travel, if you make any hotel reservations or plane reservations or any kind of reservation, and you have a TripIt account, it's kind of neat. When that email comes in from Hampton or wherever you're staying, you just immediately click forward to tripit.com, and based on your email address, it dumps it all into a little itinerary builder, including your reservation information, maps, local weather for that place. It's a really neat little organizer of your trips. TripIt is my favorite one. There's also one called TripCase. How about traveling stuff? Because that's an iPad backpack thing. If you travel with your iPad, you certainly want to keep those things together. Heather, yes.
Waze is my go-to. Waze, W-A-Z-E. I actually learned that from Craig, but it's a GPS, but it's a social networking one. So as you're traveling, you can input if you're in heavy traffic, you can click heavy traffic so that it updates for anyone coming behind you. Police on the side of the road, visible, not visible, accidents, weather, everything.
Really? W-A-Z-E, Waze.
Social network for interstate drivers.
Social network for interstate drivers.
And then GPS too, and never, when it says you will arrive at your destination at 6:38, you arrive at your destination at 6:38.
Ooh, I like that. Any other must-have travel ones? Time's ticking. Let's get out of the app thing, and then at the end we'll do some more app smackdown stuff. I also have a whole little section on little kid apps because I'm around little kids a lot, obviously, which is fun. But a lot of times, if they're screaming or jumping up and down, I go, do you want to play on my iPad? Here's the whole section for you. Which also explains why I carry that screen cleaner around with me. Little baby bugs on the iPad screen. So number 2 and all that thing was get a synchronization plan in place. I'll go through this one super quickly. Google Drive and Dropbox are the 2 things that I use just every single day. I use Dropbox for all my documents. So my documents folder on my desktop is Dropbox. I don't put anything in my documents anymore. It all goes straight into Dropbox. I am a really good person who practices backing up. So I'm not too worried that if Dropbox goes out of business tomorrow. I don't have anything that valuable that if they go out of business and take it that I really care. If you want a whole bunch of handouts on Evernote, you can have that at Dropbox. And I back up stuff, so I don't worry about that. But I never save stuff on my local drive as the default anymore. Because again, I'm a very mobile person with the iPad, and I want to make sure I have access to every PowerPoint just in case I need to do it or edit it or wherever it is. It's in Dropbox. Apple's iCloud I use for Keynote presentations. I do all those in directly and save those in iCloud. Who's an iCloud fan that would want to say why people should invest their time in iCloud? Not the photos part. Let's save that one as a separate one. Any big iCloud users? In the back, do you mind yelling? Sorry, I'm really blind.
Primarily, it's very convenient for just backing up your iDevice. Should something go south and you need to restore, let's say, a story you're traveling, it can restore everything on your phone in San Francisco.
Yeah, and John, thank you. It took me a second to get out of the bright light and see who it was. I do have my stuff backed up to iCloud also. What's nice, too, about the iCloud backup piece is you can, of course, right, just when you plug it in every night, it just have it back up automatically. So you've always got the latest backup. Any other iCloud comments or questions? The photos piece is what I especially love about iCloud, is syncing photos. Because I do take photos from iPad and then also iPhone, and then I drag stuff into iPhoto and all that. So if you're an iOS person already or an Apple person, the photo syncing with iCloud really, I think, is phenomenal. I have a whole separate wiki called Getting Your Digital Life in Order, where we could spend a whole half a day on just getting all your stuff synced up and making sure that no matter where you go, you don't have to go, oh shoot, I forgot to email myself that PowerPoint. So if you want to play with that wiki later, same goes with that one. Copy it, put it in your own wiki if you want. Or edit it, even better. Join the wiki and make some changes. I've already mentioned this one about number 3. Put frequently needed content on your iPad. So I do dump a bunch of stuff in iBooks, because iBooks is a really good app for housing PDFs, because it's in book format. So if you find yourself with a whole bunch of PDFs, for whatever reason, you got a bunch of handouts or school manuals, stuff like that, I think iBooks is a great place to store those. You can also, of course, get a ton of free ebooks online that are in iBooks format. And then third, of course, you can buy iBooks from the iBook store. Who is an iBooks person that wants to add anything to that? What I'd leave out from that, super quick. Already mentioned Flipboard, and then the last piece, of course, I already said that one also, plan for extras that you might need when you're being remote. You can get now those cool little backup batteries that just one end, plugs into the little battery block, and the other plugs into your iPad to give you, depending on what you want to pay. For $30, you can get a Duracell one that'll probably give you 20% more iPad power. If you really want to completely recharge your iPad, those bigger battery blocks, maybe $100, something like that. I'm not totally sure how much they are. So last little section, or last little piece of time, we've got maybe 7 or 8 minutes left. What are some other mobile tips for being a total iPad mobile person? Or questions about apps? How do you ditch your laptop and just go iPad? How about tips for that? What was that?
Is that really doable?
I don't know. So is that doable? So what I said is you can just ditch your laptop and just travel with your iPad. I don't think I'm ready to ditch my desktop, period. If I overstated that, I meant traveling. I can totally travel without a laptop now and only do iPad.
Yeah.
So was your question that, or did you mean?
Right. I thought you were saying ditch, both PC or, sorry, PC girl here. Ditch your desktop or whatever, because I thought you almost had to have iTunes to sync your iPad too. Even if you
No.
need to dump it, you have to sync it to iTunes, because I've had to re-image it a couple of times.
No, if you back it up to unless I'm wrong, I never connect my iPad to my computer anymore. And I've never connected my actual iPhone to my desktop.
Yeah, I never did my phone, but that just seems a little shaky to me. I don't know.
Hey, I live on the edge like that. That's what I do. I'm all about risk-taking when it comes to iPad. Yeah, don't encourage me, believe me. I don't know. Does anybody feel that you need to connect your iPad to your desktop? Because you really might. I just don't do it. So it might be something really glaringly obvious that I should.
I've never done it is when it locked up and I had to completely dump it. And redo
Right.
it. But
In case you don't know this, you don't have to do that anymore. So even if you had to redo it, you can reset the whole thing from here. And if you back it up every night on iCloud, it'll just re-back it up. We should do it and see what happens. I'm not really, can you imagine that would tank the whole hotel's rent? If you go to general and then reset and you want to completely wipe your whole iPad, it's probably good to have a backup first, unless it's fun to rebuild it from scratch. I don't know, maybe.
I mean, I couldn't even get into this part. I mean, it was.
Was that locked, huh?
Yeah. It was sad.
Outside a trip to the Apple store or a whole bunch of good Google searching or go to John's house or something, I don't know, that you could, maybe that might be a trick. John,
I'll just add that connecting to your computer is one way to back it up, and the iCloud is the second. You can actually do both. But you don't actually have to connect to your computer to do that iTunes backup. You just have to have it plugged in on your phone network.
okay.
So you can do that backup over Wi-Fi. So if you have like a charging station or something like that, it backs up. You have to turn that on at least when you connect it once to iTunes to say backup over Wi-Fi.
Okay. Last chance, iPad mobile tips, iPad backpack tips. Okay, we have 3 whole minutes left for the app Smackdown piece. Now you can't live without what app? So start yelling those out for qualify for door prizes. Evernote is your can't live without app. Simple Note, is that sort of the same concept or no? It's just a good note taking? I don't know where that came from, but. Okay. Plain text. Sorry, what? Beat the traffic. And is that kind of like the Waze thing that Heather was describing?
It lets you know where it's really time to do that. Of course, I drive 95 every day, so.
God bless. I use Inrix a lot too, just to see before I leave the house what is the traffic like. And Inrix is another one that's travel stuff. Can't live without apps. Come on, yell some more out. You don't qualify for door prizes if you don't yell them out. Pandora. I'm not a. So I want to hear about this because I don't really have a whole lot of bad habits. So I want to start drinking coffee because I'm not hyper enough. So what's the Starbucks app? Why is that so good? Oh, you get free stuff. But you have to drink the coffee to do it, right?
They have other stuff than coffee. They have tea and
Did you say they have stronger stuff than coffee?
other things.
Oh, I thought you said, well, you had me at stronger. I was like, that's good.
I like my Amazon one.
What about Genius? I hear the voice. Shelby Genius?
It's the best app that I've ever found for searching videos online at specific topics.
Shelby Genius. Never even heard of that one. Any more? You got one last minute to qualify for the door prize. Digo, D-I-I-G-O. Which weather app?
Oh, it's the local TV channel.
Oh, your local weather.
Yeah, our local channel. Check the radar.
Any others? Last call. What was it? Notability. Okay. Thank you. All right, I hope we'll keep doing this over Twitter. Remember the Twitter hashtag for VSTE is VSTE13. Share apps, productivity tips. Hopefully you'll snag this wiki for your own and just keep it or copy it. Thank you all for coming. See you in the Pine Room, 8 o'clock.